We're here with the American Century Golf Championships with NBA and college basketball analyst Jay Bilas, who's been with us every year because he gives us great insight about the Warriors and also the NBA and guys that are going to be coming into the league, especially the young guys. First of all, I got to ask you, though, how is your golf game?
It's getting there. I'm a day-to-day guy. You know, I can play well one day and play lousy the next, so it just got to try to keep my temper out there and enjoy myself.
Now, we all dialed into this NBA draft because everybody talked for years how great it was going to be, and the draft night was spectacular. Before I get to the general draft, I want to talk about the Golden State Warriors. They were at 11. They took Yaxel Lendeborg. What were your thoughts about that when they took him?
I felt like it was a perfect match because Yaxel Lendeborg is not only an outstanding player, he's got tremendous versatility, and he's built like a tank. You know, and because of his versatility, people would say, well, he's a Swiss Army knife, like he's a Swiss Army tank. But he's plug and play. Like he's going to be 24 before the season starts, I believe. So he'll be ready to go on day one. So you don't have to wait. It's not like you're taking an 18, 19-year-old freshman that might take a little bit of time to develop. He's ready now, yeah. and he's really smart. Mm-hmm. And it's not all about him. He's a team guy, so he'll fit in really nicely with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, the whole crew, Draymond Green. Yeah. He fits the maturity, I think, of that team.
Yeah, he's been with the Warriors for 2 summer league games so far. First night, he made every shot he took. I told him, I said, dude, you can't set the bar that high because now he can only go down. But in those 2 games, he's looked phenomenal. And it's not just his shooting. It's not one particular thing. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and he keeps adding to his game. You know the backstory, but I mean, he started out essentially in junior college in Arizona and then went to UAB and played for Andy Kennedy there for 2 years. And his last year at UAB, which was the year before this last one, there were only 2 players in the country that led their teams in scoring, rebounding, assists, steals, and blocks. It was Cooper Flagg at Duke and Yaxel Lendeborg at UAB. But he wasn't known as a perimeter shooter or necessarily like a perimeter first guy. And he gets to Michigan and expanded his game to where he's knocking down threes at a high rate. He's excellent defensively, versatile, like he can guard in the post and he can guard out on the perimeter as well and switch. So he fits like a glove for what I think what Steve Kerr wants to do.
I don't know if people really understand, like you just mentioned, at UAB, he played mostly a paint guy. He was bruiser. And he goes to Michigan, and they've got Ademara, and they've got Morez. And so he fits totally different slot. How hard is that to do when you've been playing a certain way for a couple of years?
Well, I mean, I think it's difficult for the average player, but for the star player, and that's one of the beautiful things I think about Yaxel Lendeborg is he's willing to do what's asked of him. So if UAB said, hey, we need you to, operate more in the middle and play a 5 spot, guard the 5, and he essentially played the 3, hybrid 3-4 right. at Michigan, and he did it.
Yeah.
And I by all accounts, was a great teammate. I mean, I was around him for a couple games here and there and got to see him in person a fair amount and felt like, the guy's the real deal. Mm-hmm. The only knock on Lendeborg is when you say, wow, he's 23 years old, as if, like, boy, if you don't start your NBA career at 19, like, you're giving up a lot of years there. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It always seems crazy to me that 24, he'll be 24 when the season starts, and it's considered old when most players are star players at least, play well into their 30s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he could have a long career.
And he's going to have a long career.
Yeah. I mean, he's got all of that. So, and Mike Dunleavy has had some success getting guys late in the second round. And 3 years in a row, got guys who actually can play in the NBA. Trace Jackson Davis and then Quentin Post. Last year, Will Richard from Florida. This year, they brought in Jay Jones from Florida State. Now, what do you know about him? Because I had to do some research on him.
Yeah.
And he also had a long road, even longer than Yaxel's, because he was bouncing around. He played at 4 different schools, St. Bonaventure, then ended up at Florida State. He's a wing, but I can't quite put a finger on just, I know he's an athletic guy.
He's super athletic, good passer, and he can defend.
Yeah.
So he's one of those pieces that you can put in the game, and he's gonna do what's necessary. And you're not expecting a second round pick to come in and be a starter and lead the way. You're expecting him to do little things that are going to help you win and help advance your culture. And I think that's what Jones does for Golden State. And if he works out to be more, then that's a huge bonus. Yeah. But, just getting an asset there. I mean, you mentioned, Quentin Post and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You have guys in Trace Jackson Davis. You have guys that may ultimately wind up at other places.
Right.
But they help you while they're there, and maybe they turn into something else for you in the future. It's just sort of gathering, valuable assets as you go.
Yeah, it's just, it's so rare that a team drafts 3 guys in the 50s in 3 straight years, and all of them play games as rookies.
Yeah.
And also get some starts. Will Richards started some games last year. He had a 30-point game last year. Quentin Post came as a rookie, was hitting threes, and Trace got some starts as a rookie. So, Mike has kind of indicated that Leger is probably going to be a little slower road. There's a little bit more of a ramp up here. But just the idea that you can find guys in the 50s suggests that you're doing something right.
Yeah, no, Mike's really smart. And, he went to a great institution of higher learning.
What school was that?
Yeah, it's a really hard to get. I mean, you've got to have academic chops to get in there. I think Mike and I were the 2 exceptions. Like Battier was the brainiac that was the no-brainer to get in. And I think Mike and I were just plain no-brainers.
I got a question for you now, because last year I mentioned Will Richard, and last year he played with Walter Clayton, and Walter Clayton went in the first round. And I think the Warriors like Will a lot, and I'm not quite sure where Walter's going to fit in yet. I mean, Will seems to have she looks really good so far this year too in Summer League. I guess my question is, when you watch a guy like Walter coming into the league with a bit of hype, much more than Will did, what do you think how's been able Will to make up that gap, I guess you can say, in the eyes of observers?
I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily a gap. I think it's just a different role. So when they were both in college, like Will Richards started his career at Belmont and obviously won a national championship with Walter Clayton Jr. at Florida. And Walter Clayton Jr. started at Iona. He played for Rick Pitino at Iona. He's actually a football player in high school.
Yeah.
So he's a great athlete. But Clayton Jr. was the guy that had the ball in his hands and made things happen more so on his own merit, and Will played off the ball and really good shooter, good spot-up shooter, and a really good defender. Yeah. I'm not sure he got credit for that leading up to the draft process, that he can guard multiple positions. He gets steals and gets off-ball steals.
Yes.
And so he's a really good, but they had the best backcourt in the country. They had Elijah Martin too, who transferred in from Florida Atlantic. So Todd Golden wasn't hurting for guards, and Denzel Aberdeen was coming off the bench.
No, he had a deep squad for sure. Now, in the draft in general, did it pretty much go like you thought it might? I mean, in the first round, I think there were a couple of surprises, I thought.
There were a couple. I was a little surprised that Dalen Swain went 15. But, I've kind of changed my view on that. Like in years past, I would go, wait a minute, you could have traded down and got him later or something like that. You're thinking about value. But then I started going, look, Chicago's picking at 15. If that's the one they want, what difference does it make whether he's 15 or 20 or 23? Doesn't really make that much of a difference. Now, if you're talking about the top of the draft, maybe there's a different analysis you would make. But it went kind of according to what I thought. Like, I thought Darren Peterson of Kansas was the best prospect. I ranked him number 1. Argue all day about him or Devonta.
For sure.
They're both great players. I was surprised, and maybe I shouldn't have been. I thought there was going to be way more trade activity in the first round. There was a ton in the second round. I think there were only 2 or 3 selections that were made that weren't traded.
The second round was all over the place.
Hats were flying everywhere.
Yeah.
But I guess the second apron and the tanking rules that are coming up with regard to draft picks made people a little more reticent to swap first-round picks in this year's draft. Maybe we'll see a change in that. But that was really the only surprise. There were a couple. Like, you thought this guy should have gone at the end of the first round. He went early in the second, but that's no big deal.
Now, we were in the Warriors draft room on draft night, and we're watching the draft unfold. And, when Braden Burries might be available to the Warriors, and we thought they got to make a decision now because they like him a lot too. And then when Dallas comes up, Dusty May picks Morez. And that surprised me a little bit but I've heard great things about Mares, and that everybody said, no, he's going to be a legitimate good NBA player.
He's legit. Like, he's a great defender. He fits the suit like you can't believe. Like, he's 6'9", 6'10". He's got a wingspan of a guy 7'3", and impacts the game defensively as much as any player that was coming out in the draft. Block shots, rebounds, lob threat, runs the floor. But his ability to switch out onto a guard, and not just guard for a dribble or two, but to really guard him, is really impressive. And he's one of those guys that's ascending. Like, he's just kind of scratching the surface. And if his offense continues to come along, I think people are going to consider that Dallas got a steal at number 9.
Yeah. Well, his coach took him. And I didn't say his coach, but his coach had some influence, I'm sure, on that.
But he wasn't going to influence, like, Mike Schmitz and Masai Ujiri are running that team, and they're not going to let anybody talk them into something that they don't believe in. So, I think they did. I know they did their due diligence. It doesn't look. None of these things mean they're going to work out,
right?
But I think it will. I think that was a really good pick.
What's your general philosophy on quote unquote old guys?
Well, I don't know what an old guy is anymore. Like when. But I get it, though. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the age part as it is the NBA over the years, whether it was coming straight out of high school or 1 year in college when that rule came in. The super talented young players do really well. And so they don't miss very often. Some of them do. But, when I was coming out of college in 1986, most guys stayed for 4 years. Now, part of it was the money wasn't like it is now. You would have seen a lot more guys leave. But, when Tim Duncan graduated Wake Forest in 1996, I think it was, he was a 22-year-old rookie that had a lot to learn. Nobody said, oh, my God, look how old he is. He played a long time in the league. Now, would have been better if he got out when he was a sophomore and got a couple years of earning power, maybe. But I don't think he's looking at his bank account going, look what I left on the table. I think he's okay with it. But it just depends on the individual. Yeah. If you feel more comfortable staying in school, I think the beauty now of players being compensated in college is if they're going to be a late first round pick, second round, whatever, they're not sure, they can stay and make more money than if they went late first.
Some guys do that.
Yeah. And it gives them options, and it's certainly better for the college game. And I could argue, I think it's better for the NBA.
Is it a ceiling thing, because sometimes he's 19, but he's got a higher ceiling than guys who's 22.
Sometimes, sometimes. I mean, you see a runway for a player that, man, if he continues to get better, look how high he can go. And there are others that they might be 23, and you say, well, we kind of know who he is. But then the next question is, okay, who is he? Because if who he is really good, why are you passing on that being really good for somebody else that you're not sure of? It's like the bird in the hand thing. Do you take the sure thing here or the guy down here that you think is going to get higher but may not? But there's never been a draft. I've done 24 drafts for ESPN, and the longer I do it, the less I feel like I know what I'm doing. But the one thing that I do think that I've learned is every draft I've been a part of, we've looked back 5 years later and we would have done it totally differently. So you just hindsight is pretty easy on this stuff. Forecasting is a lot harder.
I will say this, and that is that when the Warriors chose Yaxel, and even I've talked to probably 7 or 8 people over there since then, and there is no second thought. It all seems like that's when he was there, it was pretty much locked in. They were going to take him, and not a surprise.
Yeah. And I mean, because we're talking about Golden State, you can go back to when the top 3 guys were Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, and James Wiseman. I'm sure that, I don't remember talking too much to folks I know at Golden State about this, but you're taking a center that you needed. Yeah. So there was a need there, and Wiseman, I thought he was going to be really good, and he's had some good moments and all that. He had the Achilles when he was with Indiana, so things have been difficult for him. But you look back on that and say, you start thinking about, you can overthink it too.
Yes.
And I thought, Mike Schmitz, who we just talked about, was with us back then. And he and I were on different sides of that. He thought LaMelo Ball should go 1, was the best player. And I thought Anthony Edwards the best player. And to me, that was, but you think that about certain players and you're wrong once in a while.
Yeah.
And both of them have been really good.
Yeah.
but like it's really difficult to peg this stuff exactly right all the time. You do the best you can, do all the homework, and then let the chips fall where they may.
All right. Jay Bilas, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Always my pleasure.